and we also are broadcasting and streaming live to Workplace. But if you are unable to see the screen now, or you'd want to watch later, don't worry. It will be recorded and stored in our SUNY in the News group, and it will also be available via YouTube if you have a need to share with other colleagues. If you ask a question after our live presentation, we will try to get to it in a timely manner. For now, you can actually enter questions below, and I will be reading them. I also have some curated questions for our panelists at the end, so we can make sure that we have a little bit more of an interactive conversation. So again, my name is Kelly Williamson. I'm here with SUNY Canton's eSports team, I'm going to be calling them, and you'll hear me advancing the slides, and please refer any questions to the stream. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Molly Mott, Associate Provost and Dean of Academic Support Services and Technology, as well as Randy and Kyle on her campus.
So we have here Randy Szymanski. He is the director of our athletics program, and Kyle Brown, and he is our CIO for SUNY Canton. So going to the first slide, Kelly.
All set.
All set?
Yep.
Oh, we're not seeing it on our end, Kelly. I think you need to share it.
Oh, okay. There we go. Can you see it now?
Nope, sorry.
Oh no. This is live TV, guys. Hot mic. All right, let's see what we can do here. Okay, I'm gonna share it again. And what are you seeing on the screen now?
There we go, Kelly.
Okay.
Got it.
Can you? Are you?
Yeah, we're all. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay. Good now?
Yes, we are very good.
Okay, good.
To give everybody a little context and how we started this investment, this initiative, we have about 41% of our students who are enrolled in our fully online program. So actually, it was the students that launched the inquiry about how do we involve our online students in such things as campus life, specifically in things like athletics. And so as we're thinking about the opportunities for athletics, obviously they can't come here and play on a sports team physically. However, eSports is an avenue for them to engage with athletics, and it gives them an opportunity to actually connect to the campus and deepen their relationship to the community. So we received a grant. It's a performance investment fund grant from SUNY to elevate our entire online enterprise. And as part of that enterprise, we wanted to encourage online students to become a part of our campus life. So in the grant, which was a significant amount because it was quite broad and included various online initiatives, we did have room to hire an eSports coach. And in fact, one of our first players that was online actually was in Florida. So we had a little taste of having an online student be a part of the initiative right off. So walking to the next slide. If you think of our efforts to include online students in campus life, include them in athletics, it really comes to an overall enrollment and retention strategy. Because we know that when students become involved in eSports, whether or not they're on campus involved in it or they're fully online and involved in it, they do build community with one another, and that reduces the isolation. So you can see how that dovetails into our retention strategy of reducing student isolation. We also know that our student athletes, by just being in the student athlete community, they develop leadership skills, they work collaboratively, they strategize as a team, they develop all those skills that we know employers are seeking for our graduates to have. So once again, that's a retention strategy and a student development strategy. and also our GPA standards and our student code of conduct. We expect our online, our campus esports student athletes to have the same standards as our traditional athletes. And Randy will talk a little bit more about that when he speaks to the student athlete experience. So moving to the next slide, Kelly. When we think about where are the jobs in the future, what do they look like? Are we preparing students to actually enter that workforce as a college? And looking at esports, we know, and it's really taken off this year, and I think many people have noticed that with national news as well, is that esports is escalating. And that is impacting our enrollment. We know that it is expected to grow significantly across the world, actually at a 40% rate. And I can just anecdotally share that when we have students come to our campus for open house, even if they're coming to a major that's not related to esports, when they find out they have the opportunity, whether online or face-to-face, to engage in esports, whether it's going to the arena or being on the team, that can actually tip them to choosing our campus to enroll in. So I have definitely felt the impact, the intangible impact of students being very interested in our campus as a whole because we are offering this opportunity. So one of the things that we're doing to help students prepare for the future is we actually have a proposal for an esports management degree that we're working on, and that is to make students ready for the business of esports. So if you think of all the job opportunities related to esports, it's similar to what sports management opportunities there are: marketing, public relations, social media, event planning, managers, coaches, designers. There's a whole portfolio of job opportunities related to this industry. So we've actually complemented this initiative to create the esports management degree with some current offerings that we have here: game design, graphic multimedia design, business, tech communication, cybersecurity, so that students also have alternative pathways for that interested field. So I'm going to move on to the next slide and actually have Randy talk a little bit more in detail about the student athlete experience and what we're doing on that trajectory.
And that's one of the most rewarding things for me as an athletic director, is providing these opportunities to more students. We've added a number of other traditional athletic teams here at SUNY Canton over the past few years, and quite honestly, adding this one was easier than adding some of those traditional athletics, for the most part because of the interest level that was already on campus in esports. So that's what made it easy for us. We also felt that we were the right department, the right people to add a team, because that's what we had been doing over the past several years. And this one really was the easiest because everything already existed on campus for us to add an esports team. The student athletes, we had a staff member who was interested in becoming the coach. So all of that happened rather quickly and enabled us to provide all the benefits of traditional athletics to our esports students. It was some of the things that Molly mentioned before, like social skills, negotiating, leadership, working as a team, character development, the ability to monitor their athletics or monitor their academics, I should say, in ways that we do with traditional athletes. So if they miss a class or don't hand in an assignment or are failing the class, we will get those reports and have our coach speak with them, or our athletic director, myself, speak with them about their academics, reinforcing what their advisor might already do, but mirroring what we already do in athletics and the focus on academics in athletics, which, by the way, our student athletes have a higher GPA than our overall student population, and we're looking to mirror that in esports as well. The argument that we're promoting students to sit in front of a computer and game their life away, it doesn't really hold water for us. Students were already playing these games. This gives us a chance to add structure to it, to allow them the same benefits as I mentioned before, traditional student athletes, and to compete for SUNY Canton, to represent their school, to develop that pride in their school, perform community service. All of those social skills, academic skills, athletic family thing that we talk about in traditional athletics are applicable here. So a lot of people want to know what's the nuts and bolts of adding an esports team. And for us, it was finding a champion of esports on campus who was willing to coach our esports team. And we had somebody on campus like that. I am willing to bet that 95% of college campuses will have somebody like that on their campus, because it's either it might be an IT person, it might be a technology support staff person. I think most colleges have that, and if they don't, they've probably got somebody in town. It seems not to oversimplify it, but I think that for us, we had more than one person who probably was willing to, and we have had several others step forward and help us as we continue to expand our number of offerings in terms of which games we play in esports. Yeah. So after finding a coach was trying to gauge interest from students. So we sent an email out to students. We talked to students on campus. We had an overwhelming reaction. I think we had almost 40 students come forward within 24 to 48 hours of us talking about adding an esports team. And that really is what powered us forward and what made us realize that this is going to be an easy thing to do, because the interest was already there. Our students were already playing all of these games, and they were eager to participate under the name of the college. And so that was the great thing about it, is we were able to bring all of them together and form teams. So we have a number of teams. I equate it to the athletics department. In traditional athletics, we have soccer teams, basketball, hockey, and lacrosse. In esports, we have a number of different teams as well. We have Hearthstone, Overwatch, League of Legends, FIFA, and Fortnite. And we're looking at bringing other teams on board as well as we continue to expand. And right now, we're at about 45 students who are competing in our esports program. So that's how it all started. That's how we put it together quickly. It was really driven by the interest of our students and what they wanted. It was there were certainly challenges. It wasn't all that easy, but I think it made sense for us to develop the esports program out of the athletics department. And I know the majority of my athletic director friends out there and colleagues probably cringe a little bit when I say that, but it really, for us, it felt like the right fit to come from athletics and then provide that student-athlete experience to our esports competitors in the same manner that we did with our traditional student-athletes.
I want to underscore what Randy said earlier, because it's something that we definitely bumped up against initially and we continue to speak to, and that is the generalization that we're just promoting students playing games. But if you look at it, you have an online student who's separated from the campus by distance, so there's a sense of isolation, and then you have a student who is in their residence hall room playing video games and not leaving that room and engaging with other students, which is another sense of isolation. And retention is very critical for us. So if you can pull that online student into a campus event, and if you can take that gamer in their room and get them out of the room, working with team members, having a coach watching their grades, shape the discussions, teaching them about those soft skills, how to work with each other, how to work with other people, handle difficult conversations, strategize. You're actually teaching them all of those skills that they need to have when they graduate. So I just really encourage folks to look deeper than that they're playing games, because if we put our heads in the sand, we're not going to stop them from playing games. I mean, that is the world that they live in. So let's develop them as let's develop their full student potential.
And I think to further that point, Molly, we're doing our students a disservice if we don't offer them those same types of benefits. Right. And the argument that can be made, well, basketball, at least they're running up and down the court. Well, after they graduate from SUNY Canton or from any college, and they're not a professional athlete, which we don't normally produce professional athletes, we're a Division III school, the ability to make a three-pointer, it really is, it's not a factor in whether or not they're going to get a job, but their ability to work with people and all of those things that Molly just talked about, a more well-rounded individual, that is going to be key. So what we're bringing to those individual students in allowing them to be a team member really creates the purpose of why we're doing esports. And quite honestly, this is a different type of student than a lot of traditional athletes. Although we have some traditional student athletes that are on our Fortnite team, we've got some soccer players who are, on FIFA, and then we've got a hockey player who's on Fortnite. However, a lot of these students who are in esports are not students who are traditionally on teams. So giving them that experience is almost like preparing them for that work experience before they graduate. And I think that's critical.
And access is a big part of our mission at SUNY Canton. So giving our online students access to this opportunity that we give to our face-to-face students is very important. And we know from a student affairs perspective that when students engage in clubs, organizations, athletics, they are retained at a higher rate. So advising, tutoring, clubs, organization, those types of student engagement strategies are what are going to keep them here and have them graduate.
And they're also your most connected alumni.
Yes,
afterwards.
Connected alumni. And we definitely think of that because as we graduate more online students, how are they going to respond to our alumni when they're not really alumni office and advancement if they don't feel a connection to the campus? So there's so many shards of positive glass in this conversation, from enrollment, retention, workforce, student development, alumni relationships. This is just an example of how to tie all those pieces together.
So then, talking about the nuts and bolts of adding an esports team, the other component of that, the non-academic, the non-student, and the non-coaching part of that is the nuts and bolts of the infrastructure and the technology. And I think that's what Kyle's going to talk about next.
Yep.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, as Molly and Randy described, we had the institutional vision and the mission, and we had the student interests. So our next step was to determine how we support it, who we partner with, how we provide a competitive space on par with our competitive athletic facilities for our traditional athletes. We're lucky enough to have a couple vendor partners already that we've worked with on past projects. We've worked previously with Extreme Networks on wireless and infrastructure upgrades on our campus, supporting some of our online student engagement initiatives. And we are a Dell campus, so we've worked with Dell and Alienware in the past. So that was our first step, looking to our vendor partners to solicit feedback. Once we had some initial feedback and we determined, we really wanted to provide a truly competitive space, we wanted to provide professional equipment, and we wanted to kind of future-proof our needs. We didn't want to grow out of the equipment within a year or have to replace everything within 3 years because of new cutting-edge technology coming out. So we settled on partnering with Alienware for their high-end Area 51 PCs. These are the same PCs that are used by professional esports teams around the world. And you'll see on the slides there's some specs there. Again, we wanted to future-proof, so we went with top-of-line video cards, a large amount of RAM, top-of-line processors. As you can see, we also provided special monitors that are equipped for gaming. They have refresh rates that are much higher than a traditional monitor. Mechanical keyboards and specialized gaming mouse that have ergonomic add-ons. We provided Vertigear professional gaming chairs. They come with adjustable lumbar support so that students sitting for prolonged periods of time in those competitive environments won't have to worry about any physical issues. So initially we identified a space. We were a little unsure how quickly and how big this was going to grow. So we wanted to provide, we wanted to overestimate a little bit. We did find a large space on our campus, approximately 1,800 square feet. It's a 2-story room, which actually worked out well for us for heating and ventilation concerns. Our next step was to, figure out how we would make this a true multi-purpose room. We didn't have the space to provide a traditional tournament style setup, which would be like a stage setup with 12 stations, and also provide the practice space and the flexible space for events that we needed. So we truly wanted to design a multi-purpose area. Working with our vendors and our folks in-house, we developed a design where we fit 24 gaming stations in this space. We also have 5 console gaming stations located along one wall. There are 55-inch 4K TVs mounted to the wall with shelving units built in under them. Each of those console stations has a Xbox One X and a PS4 Pro. We purposely went with those so that they upscale to 4K to match the resolution on the TVs. And we decided to include the console gaming stations because there were some early conversations with our athletic conference, ECAC, regarding FIFA and some potentially Madden and NBA 2K coming up in the future. So again, we wanted to future-proof and provide those for our student esports athletes. We also wanted to make the space, feel like home. Our traditional student athletes have locker space. They have team meeting rooms. They have game film review. We wanted to model this space on that traditional feel. So we've also included short lockers in this space so the students can bring their own peripherals, their own keyboards, their headsets, their team jerseys, and store them on site. We've included a shoutcasting station, which doubles as somewhat of an instructor station. This is designed so that we, in the future, can start streaming some of our live matches and have some internship and student employee opportunities, collaborating with things like our sports management program for broadcasting and calling the games. We've already had a couple successful trial runs in that area. We included an 80-inch LCD in that same space so that teams can meet and review their game film and go over strategy, prior to competitions. And we also included indirect RGB lighting in this space, and I'll talk about that a little bit here on the next slide. So this was a learning experience for all of us. We looked to see what some other campuses were doing around the country. There were some very large campuses with very significant investments in their esports spaces. There were other campuses that had 5 or 10 old surplus PCs stuffed in a closet somewhere, and that's what they called their competitive gaming environment. We wanted to fall somewhere in the middle there, and so we were kind of flying blind a little bit when it came to how to support those. Once we identified the machines we were going to use, we had a rough idea of power needs and data needs and all those things. So that was the next challenge. We actually had to bring in all new power dedicated circuits to the space to support the equipment. Those PCs have 850 watt power supplies. They pump out a lot of heat and they consume a lot of electricity. So we needed to accommodate for that. We also hardwired all of our networking. Every PC, every TV monitor, every gaming console, everything has a dedicated Cat6 networking drop. And we also provided wireless in the space so the students could support their personal devices, while in their, this team space that we created for them. As I mentioned a moment ago, those PCs are large. They get hot, and we envision 30 to 40 people being in this room. So we've also had to go back and update our HVAC in that space. We're actually installing a dedicated AC unit to keep it comfortable in the warmer months. So that was a challenge. We had worked with subcontractors and some of our folks on campus. It was an endeavor. We ran 70 dedicated network drops into that space, and again, all power. On the back end of that, we put in dedicated switching for everything to connect to. It was switches solely for this space. We put priority policies on these for the traffic, and we've directed it right back directly to our core and then directly right out our primary ISP. So we did everything we could to eliminate any sort of latency, which is truly what we need to do in order to be competitive, in an environment where milliseconds makes the difference for some of these games. Once we got the PCs installed and started trying to figure out how to make the games run efficiently, beyond the networking, we really had to find a balance between performance and security and management of these machines. As you all know, at a campus level, you typically have images on a computer. Everything is centrally managed. We have, all the virus protection, and your campus likely has back-end technologies that are also, doing security-related things and in the background. We had to find a way to allow these games which had high bandwidth requirements and also had some rather odd and unique port requirements. We found some of these games had dozens and dozens of ports that were required to be open that typically we would not allow on campus. So we had to, it was a challenge to find fine-tune policy and create some stripped-down images to find that perfect balance where we weren't hindering the gaming experience, but we're also supporting these and as we would with any other machines on campus.
I just have a question for Kyle. I'll be the facilitator for a second, Kelly. How long did it take to plan that arena? Like, was that a year-long planning project, or like what was the scope of that?
We moved very quickly. The initial conversation started in towards the end of November 2017. Once we had some idea of the interest in the number of students, we really started planning in the December timeframe, towards the end of December after the holidays. We had a soft plan in place by March, and by approximately the end of April, we had a solid plan in place, and all of our vendors lined up.
So I would say we were aggressive, and we struck while the iron was hot.
We were very aggressive.
Yep.
We turned what should have been a 1.5-year project into about 6 months.
Yeah, and so in terms of the cost of the arena, it was significant. That cost of the arena was not supported by the grant. The grant just absorbed the eSports coach. So the campus actually made an investment to pay for the arena, and we tied that to our strategic plan of program and online growth. And that's why we were able to ship resources to that endeavor. So in terms of sustainability, because we do recognize that we will have to replace equipment and infrastructure in the future, we are going to use our enrollment growth that hopefully we will gather from our eSports management degree and our related degrees, as well as retaining students to be something that we reinvest back into the infrastructure of that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also envision growth there as well. And one of the other conversations we've had on campus is a gaming wing in the dorms, potentially in the future. And we'll look at repurposing, this equipment into that environment down the road and replacing with new high-end here. So yeah, it was a 6-month process, and we really learned as we went through this on the technology side. There were a lot of small things that were really unanticipated. Everything from the atmosphere in the room. Once we got the PCs and the furniture in there, we found that there was too much ambient light. There was too much direct sunlight coming in from some windows. There was some glare off of semi-gloss paint on the walls. The overhead fluorescent lights created some weird bouncing effects on the gaming monitors. So we went back and we painted the room with a flat, dark color paint. We put in RGB lighting. So all of our monitors have built-in RGB LED lighting on the backs and the sides. Our console stations, the TVs, have backlit lighting behind them. We've put indirect lighting underneath the cabinet shelves so that the floor is lit up from below. And we've also installed RGB lighting above over the fluorescent lights that shine up on the ceiling and kind of make the ceiling glow indirectly. So we can turn off those harsh fluorescent lights. We don't have any glare. There's no distraction for the players as they're competing. And they have a clean image on their gaming consoles. So that also helped with the eye strain and again the physical fatigue. The gaming chairs that we put in, that was a learning experience. I know Randy loved those chairs. In fact, didn't you buy one for yourself?
I did.
So yeah, so it was everything from the furniture to the furniture, the chairs, to the peripherals, to the paint, to the atmosphere. I mean, it really there was a lot we learned through this process, and it was very interesting to see kind of what went into this. And I will say, it really helped that we had trusted partners to listen to. We have a strong team on campus that's very innovative and very supportive of all of these things. But we also had those outside partners that we really leaned on for the technical needs. The engineers at Extreme Networks have been fantastic for us. We leveraged their experience for deploying in the NFL stadiums. In fact, some of the same engineers helped us design our wireless and our network upgrade here on campus. And the Alienware folks, it was a great fit for us. They assisted speccing out the machines based on the games we were going to play. They helped with some marketing, provided guidance on the future of hosting tournaments. And also it happened to fit well with us as a Dell campus. It falls under our Dell warranty, so our technicians can actually work on those machines, and we don't have to worry about supporting a custom build PC. So all in all, it was a fun project. I'm glad to have my life back after completing the build, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways would be is to really look at your campus culture and where you're at. We tend to be a very nimble campus culture that is flexible and looking towards the future. And so having those discussions about how the world is changing, what jobs are out there, how do we educate our students, how do we meet them where they're at, what is your enrollment strategy? Having those conversations happen quickly and well, I think is key to moving all the pieces forward together on a campus. So just looking at some of the things we're thinking of doing next is we do want to grow our online cohort, and we do want to increase the number of women in esports, and I'll let Randy kind of do a deep dive into those efforts.
Those are certainly where we want to target some of our future endeavors here at SUNY Canton. Growing online, we're going to do things similar to traditional athletics in that we'll have a tournament, for example, have a Fortnite tournament to get some of our, we know our online students play Fortnite. That's one of the most popular games right now going on in this country online. So we will do things like that, similar to, say, intramurals on campus. So to get them more involved, to get them involved with esports, and to open up their eyes in regards to the possibilities of competing at home online in our esports program. So we want to try to continue to knock down those barriers of I just take my class and then that's it. We want to involve our online students in our student affairs, in our student life here on SUNY Canton, not just esports, but in other endeavors as well. But certainly this is one of them. This is what we want to try to do, is continue to grow our online cohort. And there are certain games that we have found that our online students are more interested in than others. The same thing with our women in esports. There are certain games online that women seem to be trending toward more than others. So for us here on campus, we have an all-female Overwatch team, which is a great source of pride for us. As many folks know, esports tend to trend male in terms of their participation. Almost 90% of esport gamers are male. We have about 25–30% female participation in our esports here at SUNY Canton. We certainly want to increase that as much as possible. Overwatch has been a great way to do that. We have a number of Fortnite female students on that team as well, and we want to try to increase that. You know, as we look at it and look toward the future, esports is going to grow and need the same structure or similar structure to traditional athletics. So we have leaned on the National Association for Collegiate Esports, otherwise known as NACE, also the ECAC, the Eastern Collegiate Athletic Conference, as they allow us to, or as they provide leagues and tournaments, we become involved with them and move forward in that way. We're also able to set up games on our own. So just like, say, our basketball coach will call another coach at a different college and set up a non-conference game, esports has that ability to do that as well, and we certainly have taken advantage of that, along with playing in leagues set up by NACE, ECAC, and the conferences there too. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but certainly we look to watch that structure grow in esports in ways that it did in the NCAA and the NAIA and other bodies of traditional sports. We'll look to see how that grows in esports. And I think that will also involve in their efforts increasing the number of women that play and growing the number of online students that participate.
So Kelly, did you want to wrap up with some questions that you have for us, and then we can leave with a video and have Randy kind of narrate what they see on the video?
Yes. No, I think that would be perfect. So I do have some curated questions, but for anybody that's watching on Workplace, we do have some viewers. Very exciting. You're more than welcome to type in now, and from probably 10 minutes from now, we'll still be able to answer those questions. And if not, if you missed the cutoff, we'll follow up with you afterwards. So you did answer some of the questions in some of your stories, Molly, but I have one that's kind of off track. From what I had before. Do any of you participate in esports yourself, or is there plans for a faculty staff team in the future?
That's a great question. As the athletic director, I tell everyone that you don't really have to know these games inside out. So the answer to that for me is a definitive no. I think Pac-Man was the most modern game that I played, so it's been a long time. But I haven't gamed before.
I am not a gamer. Last time I played was Pac-Man in college many, many, many years ago. But I don't think you need to be a gamer to understand the world is different. Mm-hmm. And to try to be nimble as a campus to meet the needs of our students. So you can separate vision from being a gamer.
Yeah, it's a good segue.
I did start to dabble. I'm not embarrassed to admit. I felt foolish watching our competitive games and not knowing what was going on. It was like watching a football game and not knowing the rules, and you see people cheer and you have no idea what's going on. So I did start to dabble after we formed our teams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I won't be surprised if you do see at some point a faculty staff team, and I would imagine we'll play other SUNY faculty staff
mm-hmm.
teams.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I was trying to get our office to form one so that we could play you. So we'll continue that conversation.
I think we have enough faculty and staff, though, that are gamers that would definitely, it's just not us three.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not the ones doing the presentation. It's not the ones leading the effort.
Kelly, one interesting aspect of that, it kind of brings about the idea of who does game. And mm-hmm. for us, our students, you'd say a remarkably high percentage of them do. So, for example, our men's basketball team utilized our eSports arena. They went in there and played NBA 2K against the Maine Maritime Academy team, their men's basketball team. Same thing with men's soccer. They went in our eSports arena and played FIFA against MMA's men's soccer team. So even our traditional athletes are getting in on this because that's what they do, and they love that as well, and they get really excited about being able to compete against other colleges. And so it's spread beyond just our eSports teams.
No, that's great to know. I wouldn't have thought about that. That brings up a question about the coach. Can you just briefly touch on the qualifications for that position? Obviously, it's an interesting one.
It is an interesting one, and the interesting part about it is it's also new. So if we're talking about finding a coach for some of our traditional sports, we're looking at somebody that may have at least coached in high school or college coaching experience, or has been an assistant coach for several years, or is a head coach looking to switch schools. In eSports, there really isn't that many people who have coached at the college level because it's so new. So we look at folks who know the games, who have ideally worked with eSports in some capacity and have some relative experience to help guide them along. For us, our eSports coach filled many of those characteristics because he was already involved in gaming and technology here on campus. He understood our mission at SUNY Canton and where we were headed and what we wanted to do with this, and was able to adapt to some of the things that we have with traditional athletics in forming the eSports team. So,
yeah, I would say that when you're looking for an eSports coach, like Randy said, not only somebody with experience and understanding and enthusiasm for those games, but all those general skills you want a coach to have: mentor students, student development, academically focused. I mean, those are all the skills we want in any of our coaches. Motivate students to develop personally and professionally. So you're looking for a coach, a mentor that will actually be thinking of that student and how they can develop those skills and prepare them for when they graduate.
And they don't necessarily have to be an expert in every single game. As a matter of fact, they're not going to be an expert in every single game. They may be an expert in League of Legends, but just know Overwatch or Hearthstone or FIFA peripherally, but they're able to bring students together and guide them in the appropriate way. It's almost like trying to hire a traditional coach and say, well, he or she has to be an expert in soccer, basketball, hockey, and lacrosse. You're probably not going to find somebody who's an expert in all of those, but the ability to bring them together and to guide them along the way is going to be very important. But there's so many games out there that finding an expert in each one, unless you're going to hire a coach for every single game you offer, is just not realistic.
And I think of a story that Randy had when we first took our students to a tournament, and they were driving the minivan to the tournament, and the conversations that the students had, they had never been away from their local where they lived. They had never interacted with other teammates. And so there was an opportunity to mentor those students in how you act professionally when you do go to a tournament, and act professionally when you are traveling, and the experience of getting beyond their own world. I mean, it was a very, I would say, compelling and very interesting story when those students went on that trip.
No, that's great. It's a great story. We are getting some comments, so this is very exciting. There was a question from Lori Palmer, and she asked, following up on the cheering concept, do you have opportunities, or have you thought about opportunities for audiences to be able to sort of like give that encouragement as a traditional sports experience?
Yeah, actually this first semester we've started streaming our matches on Twitch. So we have had I think 200-300 views on some of the games.
And even more in others. I've been really surprised and shocked, quite honestly, how many views our competitions get. And I compare it to some of our traditional athletics, and they're higher in many instances. And it's exciting and fun. Yeah. And it's exciting and fun for our competitors too.
And it's very interactive, because you see the conversations in the chat window, talking about the game, talking about the players. It's fascinating to watch.
So much strategy that, like, I'm not a gamer, but I definitely see how much strategy is involved in playing these games.
And so most recently we've started broadcasting these games, but also having announcers, much like you'd have an NFL announcer calling a game on a live stream. We've utilized our streaming station to have some of our players that are knowledgeable call the games and do a live broadcast. And in the future, as we start to get comfortable with what we're doing in the technology and settle in, we'd like to start mirroring some of the things we do with traditional athletics, like Pack the Stands events. So we could broadcast this, our games via Twitch to our theater and have them there, and have a Pack the Stands night where we can have students go and have activities there and cheer on our eSports team.
Great. I had a question I had asked Molly earlier, and I know this is outside of the realm for most of you, but I really enjoy the logo, and that you talked about, being able to scale up quickly and you be very nimble. It sounds like the campus is acting very, nimble and agile. Can you share anything about how that came to be? I love the headset and the controller. Like, it's just so creative and fresh. So you don't see that very often.
Yeah, we love it. We've got a very creative PR staff here at SUNY Canton, and Matt Mulkin, our designer, came up with that, and we really liked it right away. We thought it was terrific. Our gamers, our eSports students, really like it as well. And that's another thing. I mean, they take a lot of pride in wearing their SUNY Canton eSports jerseys and other things, just like our traditional athletes, like wearing those tracksuits and jerseys and things like that. And we've seen that logo kind of take off a bit as well.
And I think that speaks to making sure that if you're going to go forward with an effort like that, you really incorporate it into the campus culture. And so marketing and branding, like you would any other effort, is very important. These students have felt very much a part of the campus because of wearing the t-shirts and having the logo and having the campus support. So I would encourage campuses that are going to go down this path is don't make it on the periphery. Really bring it into your culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would echo the marketing aspect as well, the importance of the marketing. In addition to just the logo, our PR team also developed a whole series of promotional concepts. Everything from case badges for our gaming PCs that incorporate the logo and Canton eSports, to generic stickers with the logo and recruitment verbiage on them, so that we can hand them out at events and give them to students as they travel. So it's yeah, it's been a very creative team, and it's really helped us move along as quickly as we have.
Yeah, we treat it like a varsity team.
Yeah.
And it is a varsity. We consider it a varsity team here at SUNY Canton.
That's awesome. That's great. I'm going to wrap up. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just going to say it's not an additional thing. It's part of who we are. And I think if anybody's going to go down that road, they need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, I think that's incredibly important. And this is my big question, right? We're leading up to this question, then we're going to show the video and talk about it a little bit more. But you sort of alluded to it earlier, but can you talk about how this aligns and fits in with the institutional goals, and like what efforts maybe changed or were moved up in the prioritization of those goals through this investment?
Well, our institutional goal is to achieve the student learning outcomes and to develop our students both personally and professionally. And knowing that this aligns with our new program development and our online growth, our strategies are to create new programs, new academic programs, and to grow our online students and to retain our online students. So the investment into this, we really didn't have to prioritize it over other investments. We actually pulled from revenue that we have generated from new program and online growth.
I think for me, the things that really changed it was that the interest level was so high and the dedication was so deep from our students that it changed the speed in which we wanted to do this and the seriousness which we wanted to accompany this. So we, like Kyle said, we turned a 1.5-year project into 6 months. We went full force as quickly as possible to meet the demands and the needs and the desires of our students to move forward and create new teams. We thought we'd have 1 or 2 games. Next thing you know, we've got 5 and growing. And then the other thing was the seriousness of it. They wanted to be serious varsity competitors, and that's what we wanted to enable them to do. So, and they want more, and they want to be even more competitive, and they want to win, just like all of our other traditional athletic teams. So for me, the speed in which we did it and the seriousness with which we went with it were 2 of the big factors that changed it.
Right, exactly. And I think this innovation was built on prior innovation, and that's how you get those resources to devote to it. We had made a strategic decision many years ago to promote our online programs and grow them, especially in our off term. And because of that prior innovation, it's created the ability now to do this new innovation. So I want to emphasize it's not about having one resource prioritized over another. It's basically creating that culture of innovation so you can have those funds to do new things in the future.
Oh, that's great. Jen, actually, she's at the CPD, suggested a Just Dance team. So I don't know, that's more of like the cross-section of physical and gaming, right? I don't know if she means she wants to be on it, but we'll just leave it at that. So just FYI, you never know. Do you know what games you're looking at in the future? I know you mentioned like Madden and some of the other sporting ones, but do you have your finger on the pulse in terms of what's going to be the new thing? I mean, Fortnite's still blowing up, so I understand.
It'll be interesting to see how Fortnite does develop. You know, there's still some things with that particular game that I think they're going to need to make adjustments to in order for it to be easier for college teams to compete against each other. But I think that is likely to happen, and I think we'll really see it blow up when it does in terms of popularity. But we talked about FIFA and NBA 2K. FIFA, we've got a team. NBA 2K, I think's likely. Madden is probably likely.
Rocket League.
Yeah. You know, and quite honestly, we have students come up to us every week probably and say, hey, are you thinking about adding this particular game to eSports? So again, like we said, as it continues to grow with NACE and ECAC, we'll see what they offer, or we'll see what other teams, what other colleges decide to expand into, and we'll go from there.
That's great. Oh, awesome. So I'm actually going to, well, I have this thank you slide, but for those of you that are watching, please stay with us. I'm going to stop my share. try to get out of this PowerPoint matrix that I put myself in. And I'm going to share the promotional video of for SUNY Canton's eSports. So I do have it muted, and we are running into a slight issue with the sound. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to share it, the link afterwards, but I want to just make sure that you can see it on my screen, and we're actually going to talk over it and sort of give a play-by-play, but no need to find this on your own. I will share the link below in the comments. So here we go.
You know, one of the things, most of the footage from this video came from a tournament that was held in Albany, hosted by the ECAC, and we brought our League of Legends team down there. We had some panel discussions there talking about esports, and this was just a terrific experience for our students. And the great thing for them too is that they had never really met esports competitors from other schools in person before. They got to know each other online a little bit, but so that was a really cool thing to see them talk to and bond with their competitors from other schools. So that was terrific. For them to get up on stage like that, and there was fantastic lighting and a big screen behind them, and to watch all of that go on and the strategies that go on between the two teams, it was fantastic. So that was an outstanding experience for us. That's the only time that we hit the road really and traveled. Most of the competitions are just online. However, that tournament we went down to Albany for. We went to another tournament this fall in September in Pennsylvania, and we plan on another ECAC tournament next spring. So we've been about once a semester taking our esports students and making a road trip out of it for them to compete in person. Other than that, it's just online competition out of our esports arena.
Awesome. I see you have over 1,300 views on this video. Hopefully they're not all just me. So that's good. That's great. Have you had, you kind of glossed over this a little bit, but you've had a lot of interest from other institutions in New York or around the country looking for the same experiences, you know, to try to duplicate what you're doing, or, you know, what's the interest level been from colleagues?
We've got a remarkable amount of media coverage on our esports team, and probably because we're one of the first schools in our area. We're I think we're the only SUNY school right now with an esports team, although I know there's some others considering. I think we were one of only 2 colleges in New York State to have an esports team, and really in the Northeast, we were one of just a few as we started out last year. And as a result of that, we've had a lot of folks give us calls, send us emails asking about how did you start it, how did you find a coach, where did you find your students to compete, what was the infrastructure you needed, what was the equipment that you needed, the computers, all of those things. So we have really been swamped at times with inquiries from other colleges. Yep.
Oh, that's great. So I'm just looking at the website. When do you think you'll be able to release some really specific esports data, or is that something that you have planned for the future? I'm just curious, and now I'm just going off cuff here, but.
Well, I mean, absolutely. We'd like to track our student involvement and see the retention rates. You know, it might just be a correlation, and obviously isn't a cause, but to look at, are the students that are involved in the esports team, you know, what's their overall GPA? Just like we track our regular student athletes, we're just going to incorporate them into that data.
All right, great.
We also have 3 faculty members who received an IITG grant for a research project into the physical and emotional health of an esports athlete. So they're actively working on that.
I think that's probably the most fascinating thing, because it speaks to so many questions that we get about this isn't good for students, you're promoting gaming, and they're not going to be able to integrate in the workforce because they're so used to game, blah, blah, blah. So I think that research study is really going to be just kind of open a can of interesting questions.
You know, another thing as the athletic director, Kelly, that was a little eye-opening for me, and we really hadn't given a lot of thought until we actually had our esports team, was a lot of these students have never been on a competitive team before. They've been competing in eSports, but unlike our traditional athletes who come in and they've been playing soccer since they were 4, they've been playing basketball since they were 5, and on teams and learning roles and learning how to interact with coaches and things like that. eSports is a little bit different. Most of our students participating in eSports have never been on an eSports team before.
It speaks to that isolation piece. We're trying to, you know, crack that nut.
And it might be one of the
isolation.
And it might be one of the most valuable things that we bring to our students is being able to learn all of those skills and interactions and competing on a team and those leadership opportunities. So that's been really valuable, but it's been a bit of an eye-opener and also presents some challenges in working through some of those things at times.
Great. Awesome. Well,
aren't we going to do yoga with the esports team just to get them to?
I think they've done it like a little bit before. Yeah, it sounds crazy. But
they actually incorporate a wellness approach to meet those physical needs of sitting in one place and gaming. So I think there's lots of opportunities for doing some creative things.
Oh, no, definitely. I think that as, you know, we'll be watching closely, as I'm sure most of the colleagues and, you know, our friends will be, just to see where you take it. And obviously whether you wanted to or not, you are serving as a model, especially in the SUNY system. So I think this is great. Right now you see on the screen the arena, and I saw that there was a video you can watch on the unveiling. So I recommend everyone go to the website and check it out. So any last words of wisdom or anything you felt you wanted to get out that you hadn't before we end for today? I'm really thankful for you three spending time with us today.
I'm just thinking of beyond esports, what's the next thing campuses should be looking towards the future in terms of program development and student development and retention? What's the next thing as well?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a great wrap-up point. Well, thank you, Randy, Kyle, and obviously Molly for being here and for being good sports. This was our first SUNY Show and Tell series. Little webcast here. So again, just like you're taking the bull by the horns with esports, thanks for jumping into this adventure with us on Workplace. If anyone does have any other questions, you can ask them below, and we'll respond when we can, as quickly as we can to those, especially if you're watching this months from now. Please feel free to ask us questions or reach out to us on Workplace or via email. I am going to stop my share now and stop our recording, but thanks for joining.